So here is your posture breakdown for today. Today we're going to look at downward facing dog. So we pull this apart quite a bit in classes anyway, but let's give it a go today and see if we can pick apart little bits and pieces that'll just make it perfect for you and for your body. So when you're ready, we're going to start at the top of the mat and we're going to come into it as we often do as part of a sun salutation from a forward fold. So coming to the top of the mat, standing with the feet, hip distance, spreading the toes out. We're tucking the tailbone slightly under, rolling the shoulders back and down. Take a breath in, let's sweep the arms all the way up. And as you exhale, hinging forwards from the hips. We're going to keep a bend in the knees just for now. Letting the head hang in a forward fold. Inhaling halfway, the crown of the spine, the crown of the head, moves forwards, and exhaling. Refolding, fingertips come down. We're going to set both legs back into downward facing dog. So just lowering the knees for a moment, let's start with the hand position. So we're going to spread the fingers out, really spread them out as wide as you can. And we're going to make a move as though you're trying to pick up a basketball with one hand. So the palm becomes a little bit dished, but the fingers and the pads here are all in contact with the ground. So it's as though we're making to pick the mat up with each of the hands. We're going to start with roughly the wrist, crease of the wrist in line with the short edge of the mat. But if that's not comfortable for your wrists, we can spin them in or out a little bit. It's something that you'll just need to play with to see what feels better for you. So once we're there, we can either bring the hands right directly under the shoulders, or we can move them slightly further forwards to take a little bit of pressure off the wrist if your wrists aren't feeling particularly comfortable. We're going to bring the knees directly under the hips, and the knees are also hip distance. We're going to keep a slight bend in the elbows. So if you've got funny elbows, like me, and they lock out a funny way, we're not going to do that. But we're going to try not to lock the elbows at all. We want a slight bend in them so that we're actually working all the muscles in the back of the arm. Good. From here, we're going to tuck the toes under. We're going to tilt the pelvis up, sitting bones are rising up to the sky, and we're going to lift the hips up and back. Now we're going to keep the knees bent first of all. We're going to work on the top half of the body. So we're going to really melt the chest through. You might need to refirm the hands, might need to respread the fingers out, but melting that chest through, ears are roughly in between the biceps. And when we're here, we're just going to give the head a big wobble, make sure we're not holding any tension in the neck. We're pulling the belly button in, lifting the sitting bones up to the sky, and the top half of the body's looking pretty good now. To just perfect it that tiny bit more, make sure the upper arms are spiralling in the right direction. What we're going to do is we're going to bend the elbows wide, lowering the head towards the mat like we're doing a press up. You don't have to come this low, I'm exaggerating it just so you can see. And then we're going to wrap the elbows in so they're pointing backwards and push back up. Feels a little bit awkward when you first do it, but that's the position that we want to look for. So let's do that again. We're bringing the elbows wide, lowering the head towards the mat. Wrap the elbows in, they're pointing backwards and pushing back up. So the upper half of the body now is looking pretty good. We're just going to give the head another big wobble in case you picked up any tension doing that little arm movement. From here now we're going to walk the heels up and down. Starting to feel into the back of the legs a little bit. Keep pulling that belly in, keep melting that chest through. And when it feels okay, we can start to lower the heels towards the mat. You can see that right now at the start of a practice, my heels don't quite touch. They may do later on in the practice, but we're not too worried about that. We're more interested in melting the chest through, lifting the sitting bones, making that beautiful V shape. And just hanging in there, just for a moment. And our final test now of our downward facing dog, so that it's a nice practical dog that we can flow through, we can work with as part of a salutation or any other flow. We're going to make sure that our dog is not too long. So we're going to float forwards into plank. And you can see there mine is a little bit too short. I can't quite float forward into plank. So I'm just going to tiptoe my feet back a little bit, and then you can see I can float forwards and backwards with ease. So you can see that I've had to lengthen my stance a little bit to bring myself into that position. So I'm going to lower the knees now, sit back on the heels. Just going to do a couple of little wrist movements before we do another downward facing dog. Make sure we're really comfortable with it. So let's bring the arms out in front. We're going to rotate the wrists one way. Nice cracky wrists there. And the other. Good, lifting the arms up overhead. We're going to make fists and release quite quickly. Good, then bringing the hands out in front, giving them a nice shake off. Good, coming back onto your hands and knees. So remember what we said, hands directly under shoulders or maybe a little bit further forward. Really spread the fingers out, grabbing the mat as though you're trying to pick it up. Knees under hips, let's tuck the toes under, lifting the hips up and back. Again, knees bent first of all, tilting that pelvis, melting the chest through, wobble the head. We can repeat that arm movement if it feels good, so bending the elbows wide, wrapping them in and pushing back up, and then just walking those heels, easing into the back of the legs. One more time, let's float over to plank and floating back again. Easing yourself forwards to plank and back again. And that's your nice downward facing dog that should feel pretty good. If at any point in downward facing dog you get tired, you can lower down onto the elbows. It's strong in the shoulders though, so you might find that doesn't ease off too much at all. And remembering that you can always take child's pose. Perhaps bringing the arms behind with the palms facing up. Resting the wrists at any point. Rejoining the flow of the class whenever you feel ready. Easing yourself out now. I hope that was helpful. And if there are other poses that you'd like me to break down for you in future, then let me know in the comments below. Or if you've got any more questions, drop me a message. I'll see you all again soon.